How do you calculate what is the end asset you have in hand? You need to figure out the opening balance first, then add the net effect of all the transactions, which can be positive or a negative. In our case, we had a positive cash flow, and that gives you the ending balance of a cash flow. Let's say in the month of March, in the month of February, we had a negative cash balance of $5,000. Okay, so here we put minus $5,000. And so that gives you cash balance on 31st of March 2018 as $37,000 minus $5,000, that is of $32,000 is your net cash balance at the month of March, or you can say precisely closing cash balance on month in March 2018. Closing cash balance as on 31st of March 2018, that goes to $32,000. So yeah, that was all how an organization level cash flow statements are prepared. And now with this, I hope you have a good understanding of how the cash flow statement operates, how you need to measure your cash flow, understand how the organization level cash flows are prepared. And now we'll quickly look at one more example, which is going to be a very small cash flow statement, but that will be with regard to a project. I'm not going to be able to list out every single item which is going to be covered in the project. It depends on project to project. For example, IT-based projects will have a different cash flow line items, especially with regard to the operation expense. The marketing projects will have, marketing project manager will have his own different cash flow line items, especially in the operating section statements, again depending on the activities carried on by them on a recurring basis or the activities which form a core part of their project. But I believe you'll be able to get a small hint how is the project level cash flow going to look like, but it's nothing going to be different compared to what we just looked over here. Okay, we'll take the same example over here, use the same thing and put it over here in a side-by-side basis. So that should help you also to get a quick comparative analysis precisely. Okay, cash flow at the project level. Sorry, caps lock was on. Project level. Okay, we don't need to write this books and all. We'll just label project XYZ and we'll label the project manager as our famous Mr. X. Okay, statement of cash flow for, we just need to modify the labels here, project XYZ for the month of March 2018. Now, what can be the cash flow for project X for Mr. X? It's obviously data's collection can be there if it's a revenue driven project where they have the timelines and all set it up. We'll say we had a collection of somewhere around $5,000 for the month of March. Cost of sales, cash sales, nothing. We'll just we'll remove this thing. Obsolete stock is supposed to be the company's liability, I think so. We paid to creditors for, let's say, $2,000, which are only relevant to Mr. X project over here. Okay, selling expenses may not be there. We'll keep it for the timing, but we'll reduce the amount. It cannot be that substantially high, so we'll just put it as $100 over here. Salaries to employees. Here we need to put one more thing. A project can have a couple of employees specifically hired for a particular project, or they can have the common resources of the company which are available to all the project managers. We'll put into account only those salaries which are paid to employees who are specifically hired for project XYZ or are specifically involved in project XYZ. Okay, so that's gonna be something around like say $2,000 additionally for the month of March. Utilities, no, they're going to be common throughout the organization. So that gives us a net cash flow of $900 for project XYZ's operating activities. Now, cash flow from investing activities, all these things, sale of equipment, purchase of equipment, selling of shares and all, they all are the organizational activities. They cannot be reported in the companies or the project's cash flow statement. So let's try to understand what can be an investing activity for the project XYZ, or you can say for Mr. X. Supposing even he had last month this $900 from operating activities, and he invested that cash flow in a liquid fund for a period of 1 month to get an interest income on that. So investment in liquid fund, we'll put it investment in liquid fund. He's a smart guy. He won't invest the entire amount. He knows he need to have some amount in his hand to spare. So he just invested $500 of the liquid fund. So now net cash flow from the investing activities is going to be $500 only, right? And lastly, we have financing activities. If it's not going to be most of the cases that project managers are liable to raise finance for their own projects. No, they get access to the common funds of the company because companies decide that this is the budget we have for this project and you need to play within this budget only. Here is a check for your project, check of budget which is there for your project, and so on. But let's say over here Mr. X is at liberty to raise the loan if needed. Okay, and this is supposed to be collateral free working capital loan. So we just put over here working capital loan for project XYZ. I think $1,000 should be sufficient based on what the working capital requirement is coming up. And so they raised a working capital loan of $1,000. Now net cash flow from operating activities. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to write this here. It's supposed to come over here. $1,000. Now net cash flow from the operating activities. Let's say that is the total. Obviously, that's the total of these three things. Sorry, my bad. I went to a different zone. Okay, so your net cash flow A plus B plus C is going to be $1,400. Negative 900 from the operating activities. Invested 500 out of that. That leaves you with a balance of 400. Additional $1,000 loan for the working capital of the project XYZ. That gives you a total of 1,400 net cash flow for the month of March. Also, additional opening, he had, let's say, suppose an additional funds of $200 in hand on 1st of March. Closing balance of Mr. For the project XYZ on 31st of March comes to $1,600. So technically speaking, there's no difference in these two on a fundamental levels, right? Principles are the same for both of them. The only difference lies in the line item. The one for the organization level is going to be an exclusively detailed one. The one for the project level is going to be relevant only for those items which are incurred for the projects. That's it. So this was all with regard to an example on a cash flow statement. I hope with this you have a thorough idea, a clear-cut idea of how the cash flow statements are prepared, both at the organization level and at your project level also. Fundamentally speaking, there's no difference in the application of the concept. The only difference lies in analyzing the items and allocating them among the operating, investing, or financing activities. But as a project manager, most of the time you need to be worried about your operating activities because that's where you have an exclusive control. The other areas you can just leave it to the higher management of the company or the finance team of the company. Your core focus should be only in this section, the operating activities and how to maintain a positive cash balance, a positive cash position in this section. That was all, guys, for the cash flow statement.